Having trouble connecting. Oh. Hello, Daniel.
Hello, and we are on.
We are. Is there a hum or a buzz or a fan going? Sorry, I didn't notice that earlier. Nice.
There we go.
And that's the intro. All right.
Hola.
Hey, no clever photoshops this week. Didn't have time for that. Since we're a day late and couldn't do the normal show time.
Yeah. Well, we had stuff going on. It's all right.
Hey man, these things happen. You get
for the
busy.
For the 5 people that are watching this, they're like messed up my whole Tuesday routine.
So somebody literally did ask this today. Asked me, said, "Hey, you didn't do a show yesterday. What happened? Are you done? You're not doing it anymore?" I was like, "No, we're gonna do it tonight." And then like someone in the room said, no, they said they're doing it tonight." So at least people have
our reputation
that.
precedes us.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they're listening, but they're aware that we do something.
Yeah.
And then when we don't do it, they bust your balls. So that's
what is it like? Jack Sparrow is like, "But you have heard of me."
Yes, exactly. So yeah, I was traveling, so it made it tough to get back and do something.
Yeah,
but traveling was fun though. It was good.
All right. So our slapshot topic that we both sort of came up with at the same time: performative wokeness.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is my favorite kind of wokeness because it's the best. It's the best kind. 1, because it's the most entertaining and hilarious. 2, because you can criticize performative wokeness without being a bad person. Because everybody gets on, you know what I mean? Because even the people who are into wokeness also don't like performative wokeness. So it's like if you say it right, it's a topic that everybody can hopefully get behind.
I don't know if I agree with that last statement. Because I think everyone, I think they all love
my
it.
use of the word everybody.
No. I think no. I'm sure there are some people who don't like it, but I think lots of people do like it. So that is my thought about it.
Interesting.
That's just a thing. Whatever. We can talk about it some more.
Okay.
But yeah, right. Because it's everyone's favorite month, Dan. It's Pride Month, which is it's the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme of performative wokeness month.
I wouldn't say it's
agree or no? You don't agree? I mean, it's a whole month. It's pretty good.
I mean, okay, I guess in one sense you could agree. Although it doesn't feel as fake as other types of performative wokeness.
Really?
I mean, granted, given that there's a whole month and it's like literally the definition of the word performative, there's a lot of sort of pomp and circumstance surrounding it. But when I say the phrase performative wokeness, there's a cynicism in my tone, right? And I don't get that from some of it, sure, but I don't get that from a lot of the Pride Month stuff. A lot of that feels, I mean, I don't know. It's like, it's not my thing, but it's like, all right, fine, you do whatever you want. But the performative wokeness that comes with other stuff, like we were talking about with the sort of corporate angle, that's where it gets into it. So maybe
okay. I'm coming from a total. Well, no, I see that point. I'm not talking necessarily individually performative. I'm talking corporately performative.
Okay,
maybe that's a good distinction. So
yeah,
are we both talking about the same thing? We're both saying corporations, organizations, entities, not necessarily Aunt Sally or Aunt Sue or Uncle Joe and their thoughts about wokeness and their pet causes and things they go and support, right? I'm not talking about that in this particular. I mean, I may be. That's not the examples I have in mind, though. So that's not where I'm going from.
Sure. You? Okay. No, in that sense, and I have a whole subtopic that we can get into later about that. But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it should be noted, lest people who like come from a non-red state would watch this and be like, well, okay, so they're just crapping on everybody who's different than them. I actually don't have you want to do what you want to do, like even okay, I'll say this. Obviously, like regular people saying what they say about a given topic or cause, that's totally what our society is based on. I think that's great. And I would encourage it. Even on the corporate level, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Like, okay, so like we have a thing where there's a cultural zeitgeist surrounding a topic, whether it's this thing or whether it's whatever, and then a corporation decides we want to, like, even if it's something as cynical as like a marketing ploy, right? They're like, look, our demographics show that we got to hit these bases here, so if we could just do a couple of Instagram posts about this topic, it'll be really good,
right?
The implication is that they're doing it for monetary or financial purposes as opposed to it being something that they're actually passionate about. But I don't have a problem with that.
Sure.
Like, because it's like, all right, you're running a business. There's no different than like, any sort of advertising budget. Like say you're like, well, look, we're running a commercial, we're running it in these markets, and it's a bunch of like, white guys in the commercial. Like, can we diversify this commercial a little bit? Look, you're just playing the game. I have no problem with that. And I don't have a problem with like, corporations using their Twitter accounts and they're saying like, hey, we support this or we support that. I'm like, all right. Even if it's something that I agree or don't agree with, it's like, all right, well, you're just playing the market. And if it has bad repercussions on you from a business perspective, then all right, fair enough. I mean, you brought that on yourself. Like, everybody's playing the game. The part where I start to go like, oh, you know what? Why don't you go? It's when people start like being vultures on each other, right? And then you got like the Twitter mobs that are like, we need to look up every corporation that didn't put a black square last year, and then we need to boycott them, right? Or it's like, which corporations or like public figures haven't put a rainbow on their little profile picture this year? It's like, well, maybe they're just not particularly interested in viewpoints on, social issues or whatever. That's part where I was like, all right, now we've jumped the shark a little bit, because now we're just turning into like groupthink mobs, and we're getting away from the American spirit of, freedom and individuality and everybody having their own opinions and stuff like that. I don't know.
Yeah, sure, but but then what's your definition of performative wokeness? I mean, or just performative as we don't have to use the term woke all the time, but I mean, we can. But performative activism, I guess. I mean, if you're doing it just to make money, whatever. I mean, you can do that. I mean, I don't have a problem with trying to make money, but I mean, you're that's hollow, that's insincere, and that's to play on people's societal concerns seems to me to be a shitty thing to do. And I would consider that.
Well, it's definitely, it could be seen as shallow, just like any other advertising or marketing would be seen as shallow.
I don't know. Not all advertising is shallow. It's
not all of it, but I mean, there's certainly a lot of it that can be.
I mean, it's by definition shallow because it has nothing to do with your business, more than likely. I mean, right. I guess it could. So, I mean,
like a De Beers commercial, trying to, what was it with the silhouettes with the guy putting the necklace on the woman, and they're playing Vivaldi or whatever, and they're saying like, "Isn't she worth it?" Or show her how much you care. It's like, yeah, you know what? Go eat a dick, all right? Because those diamonds aren't rare at all. Don't get me started on diamonds. But it's like, okay, they're playing on this ridiculous emotional thing to manipulate people into buying their product. Right. Or, Dennis Haysbert being like, you're in good hands with Allstate. I'm like, Dennis Haysbert doesn't care about the fate of my family. And those insurance companies sure don't. They're out there to make a buck playing on people's fear of calamity. So,
sure. Hey, man, that guy and Joe Boo really care about your state of your if you've actually have you seen Major League? I just want to make sure you're not really a sports guy.
I haven't seen Major League in like 20 years at least.
Okay, well, he's whatever. Joe Boo is hilarious. So
yeah,
I don't know, but I think I just disagree with it in general. I mean, your take is fine, but I don't like the bandwagonness of it. So maybe that's
well, okay, yeah, that I'll agree with you on.
So insincere that it drives me crazy, and it is like you said, like the black flag over your profile picture, or I stand with whatever tragedy just happened today, and you're like, you got nothing to do with that. I mean, I get it's just a external thing you do to garner favor with people. It's the corporate version of virtue signaling, which just drives me crazy.
Yeah.
Because they're full of crap, and they're trying to make money, and if it's not an integral part of your business,
Well,
I don't care what you think about it.
yeah, I suppose we could allow the space for the percentage of people for whom it is sincere, right?
Sure, I'm okay with that.
So like I mean, I'm countless examples of like, because I've known like clients and people like that. It's like, yeah, we're doing this thing for St. Jude's or whatever, and because they knew somebody who's son or had leukemia or whatever. And like, or if somebody who's like really into Pride Month because they have either they or their cousin or somebody they care about is gay, and I'm like, all right, well, fair enough, all right, you put your money where your mouth is.
Yep.
So I think it's the kind of thing where it doesn't take anybody who could look at it for more than 15 seconds could be able to deduce whether it's a sincere thing or non-sincere thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when it becomes glaringly obvious who's doing the performative wokeness and who's doing the sincere wokeness.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, sure. And I think that's the case in most of it, to be perfectly honest with you.
Right. Or regular Joes, like regular people who are then, they see every corporation that goes along with the wokeness, and they see them all as like pioneers, and they're so brave. You know what I mean? And they're taking a stand. And it's like, okay, well, why don't you just like, they need a little bit more cynicism, because I'm like, I don't want to burst your bubble here.
Well, yeah, I mean, sorry, man. Talk to me in 1987 when if you're BMW and you're changing your logo to a pride flag. Come on, it's freaking 2021. It takes no balls to do that now. So it's not, you know what I mean? Like it drives me crazy. Like it's not like you said, pioneering. They're not pioneering. It's social bandwagoning. It's just jumping on and
didn't BMW build cars for the Nazis? Talk about a imagery brand that they've done in the past 80 years. I mean, obviously, none of the people who did that are alive now. So, like, but still, it's just like Adidas was the same thing.
Really, Adidas? I didn't know that.
They made uniforms and stuff. I think they started out as like a clothing company. In Germany.
I didn't know that was a German company, or originally.
I'm pretty sure. I could be, maybe.
It's a fact. You said it.
Somebody fact check me.
You said it. It's on the internet. It's true. This is happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like, all right. So I only made like one little graphic, and I want to show it to you. And I didn't really make it. I just pulled it off the internet, and it drives me crazy. So this is what I think I sent this to you during the week, and if I didn't, it's hilarious. So you got all these companies that outside of the Middle East will throw that flag up there, the Pride Month stuff real fast. But then, they would never do it in a market that would destroy them. So I think this is just for these particular companies, this is something that just shows how shallow it is. And you're just a freaking sucker if you see it and you go, oh, that warms my heart that Bethesda cares about the LGBTQ community. Because they don't. Because if they had balls, they would do it in the Middle East.
Is the Middle East a big video game market? I guess it probably is. Maybe.
Well, I don't know. Maybe. I got nothing. I'm surprised. I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm now aware that people have different Twitter accounts per different regions of the planet. But that's how stupid I am.
Well, yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, yeah, because there's a lot of rules and regulations, and internet rules are crazy and getting into other countries and stuff. But so, like, that stuff is just so transparently disgusting to me. And not because of their position. It's just that they're pandering. It's just so gross, and it's just so stupid. And it flips a switch, man. And like for this particular one, because it's Pride Month, so it literally is June 1st, and then boom, it all comes. And like this stupid the Game of Thrones memes are like brace yourself, like Pride Month is coming, like rainbow flags are coming, and it's just like it's so true, and it's so silly, and it happens every year. Or it has for the last 4 or 5 years or something like that. So
yeah, it takes what could be a legitimate cultural conversation and turns it into yet another team sport.
Yeah, or a freaking cheap commodity that's no longer important. To the point, you know what I mean? It just bastardizes it, and it like you said, it's shallow. It makes it so shallow that it's all about making money. Like when your whole cultural push and your whole cultural phenomenon is like, I can make money off of this now. Sorry, man, you've lost it. You're no longer you're not a subversive group. You're the dominant cultural narrative. If you're making
Yeah.
money off of it, sorry, like there's no other way around it. And then if that's the case, which I think it is, now I'm just thinking through this, that makes the whole month moot. It's stupid. You don't need the month now. It's so embedded that people are making money off of it. It's not like a thing that's you're not raising awareness. Sorry, no awareness is being raised.
Right.
And that was the point of Pride Month, yeah, or any month or any day.
I wouldn't dare to know the original point of it because that's not my.
Whoa, me thinks Dan doth protest too much.
No, I mean what I mean is like that's not a cultural area that I inhabit, so I wouldn't I don't know the actual like roots of it. But
Well,
I would
by
say,
definition, though, like it wasn't. I mean, it was to raise awareness for sure, and to raise
and it
acceptance.
was in defiance of oppression and in defiance of sort of cultural norms, for better or worse.
Yeah. Right. That's what I mean. But
yeah,
but
I guess
now,
so.
but now if it's
kind of like Times Square, you know what I mean? Like New York City, it's like these things that like if you lived in New York in like the 70s and 80s, it was like, oh, New York, you got to be tough to live here, And there was like this, it was like this rich cultural tapestry. And then, with, Giuliani in the 90s and all this kind of stuff. And now you go to Times Square and it's just like a logo for every giant corporation, which people would argue has, lost some of the soul. Now, granted, along with that comes the fact that you probably are less likely to get stabbed, or at least up until this year. But
yeah, until 2021, right?
So it's like, there's pros and cons to that. But, yeah, it's okay. So I have so the question is, just so it doesn't sound like we're bagging on like something from a left-wing perspective.
Sure.
We also would have similar feelings about like people who use, religion in that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was trying to think of a good example of that because there's no like Jesus month. Well, maybe Christmas, but even then, that's not really true.
Not so much anymore. But I mean, like
joke. I got
thinking
nothing.
about like decades past, where it's like, people. I mean, how many people do we know that would, just sort of go along with not necessarily performative wokeness, but performative piety, right?
Sure.
Like you run a business in a small town in the South, and then you're just going, oh, Jesus saves. You put that on your thing, whether it's a heartfelt belief system or not, Or so an even better example that I was thinking about earlier was like, pro soldier stuff,
Yep.
So it's like, how many people do we know, especially where we come from, military bases all over the place, we like support the troops, we support our, faith, hope, victory, you know what I mean? Like all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I don't necessarily have a problem with it. Again, like if it's somebody who's like, say they were in the Marines or they had a son that they lost or whatever, I'm like, all right, look, that's a cause that I don't blame somebody for their personal feelings, but when it's like, again, I guess when it comes to a corporation and you're just like using a cause and it just feels a little bit cheap, like it's like it's like a Toby Keith song. You know what I mean? It's like,
okay.
That's a little gross.
I think country music is probably just an overall great example of that. But other than that, actually, I don't know, man.
Performative patriotism.
Performative patriotism. Yeah, but the thing is, though, with patriotism, it's almost expected that everyone be patriotic because you're by default part of the country. So that'd be a little bit of pushback there. I'm not saying you should be performatively patriotic.
Right, but I guess it depends on how you define patriotic. Right.
Well, sure. Or this example.
Like
so
go ahead.
No, sorry. Just real quick. Like 4th of July is coming up. So if everyone's just like, happy 4th of July, and like they're putting up American flags all over their stuff and you're an American country, that doesn't feel the same as
no, that's
random
fine. That's like
what? It doesn't, you know what I mean, though?
It's like go Steelers and you wear a jersey, like.
Right. I don't know, man. So maybe I think it's harder to come up with a right-wing example. And maybe it's a blind spot for me not to see that just because I lean that way personally, I guess. But I would be against it as well. Like just straight up, or so like maybe like the lead up to the Iraq War, like yellow ribbons everywhere. That's kind of a thing. Like that happened, right? So
yeah.
But even then, that still feels hollow to criticize that because people are like, well, I mean, they're American soldiers getting killed, and that's what the ribbons are for. So I don't know.
Right. Well, there's a whole other. We could do a whole other podcast on the weird relationship that we have with war. Right.
Yes.
The two of us being on the sort of libertarian side of a lot of that are kind of like, all right, well, we could do a deep dive into like how do we feel about getting involved in these godforsaken conflicts thousands of miles away, sending our sons and brothers, like that's a whole thing, right? So
in many ways, the right-wing version of this is way worse because it actually kills human beings as opposed to just offends your grandmother when she goes on Twitter. So I think it's different. I mean, it's a good point, and if we could find an example, I'd be all for it. A performative social pandering on the right. That's a cultural thing. That's not because
I would say if I could think of a good example, it would be like every president who says "and God bless America" at the end of every speech.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? Like you think Nixon went to church and like prayed. You know what I mean? Or like, you know what I mean? It's like, so the idea, but it's just kind of expected and you have to say it. And if you don't say it, then you're going to upset a certain demographic of the country. And so I just say it. It's fine.
Yeah. I think maybe the right-wing folks are more susceptible to it on a personal level, maybe not so much on a widespread corporate level. Cause like on that kind of thing, or like everyone's like, oh, Donald Trump, my God select, he's my president. I'm convinced he's a Christian. I really am. Like, no, you're not. No, you're not. There's no way you think Donald Trump is a Christian. I'm sorry.
I don't see how anybody would think that.
I've heard it. I've heard it. So, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah,
which would be very interesting. I'm sure we can get into that. But
yeah. Well, I wanted to talk about war because it was on my mind because Memorial Day and D-Day, and I find that stuff very fascinating. I like learning about war. I find war movies interesting. And yet, as I grow older and my kids grow up, I watch them with there's a certain, like, say you're watching a war movie and it's like, yeah, you can appreciate the sort of the suspense and the adventure of it. But at the same time, it's like, I have a hard time as an adult not thinking about, like, the senselessness of everything. Like, this French village existed for 200 years before it was blown up by and then, like, thinking about, and I think about like the enemy soldiers in war movies. Like as a kid, watching, I'd be like, oh, there's the Jerrys, they're coming in, and then I'm thinking about like every one of those German guys was just some dude who grew up in a village in Bavaria or something who was just recruited out of his family. It's like I think it's like I find the tragedy of war mixed in with the rah spirit of it very fascinating, and we don't have to get into it now. But so that's why
I get into that though. Not today,
what?
Maybe.
No,
yeah. That's a fun conversation.
But it's a great example of a performative aspect, right? Where it's like, look, this is this thing that we all believe, right? We're all on the same team. And then if you find somebody who's like not into it, you're like, and that's kind of where we're at now. And so, thankfully, we're not involved in large scale wars right now. So what do we have to make a team sport about?
Yeah.
So yeah, just all that to say that like, this is not like a type of thing where it's like one side of the political aisle is worse at it than the other, because we all do it. Like, there's, you know what I mean?
I do. Hey, we got a comment. Let's read it. It says,
all right.
This is rare. So we got one. So Ben says, so basically, can I put it up there? I can.
Ha!
So nice.
Tick.
So basically, a protest that they don't kill us. Also, it doubled up as a funeral dirge. In the last 20 years, it's really become commercialized to the point larger portions of the queer community criticize the corporate vampirism where they are trying to make a buck. Right. Okay. So that, I think, kind of echoes my point.
Yeah.
A little bit more of a history there on Pride Month in particular.
Yeah.
But it's really just commercialization is a good way to do it, or a good way to phrase it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like what would be a really gross, like, I don't know, maybe if you had people like dressing up as like Harriet Tubman during Black History Month or something that was really, like something that was really crass.
Yeah, dude, you could never get I don't know. You can make, if you, I wonder if are there some strange parallels that you can
dressing
do now?
Dressing up is probably a bad example, but like, I'm trying to think of something that, to the people who experience an actual struggle in society, for them to later on see that it's now like, ooh, look, it's all over the billboards, to be like, okay, you know what? You're just making $1 off of what was a legitimate human experience. I'm trying to think of another parallel to that.
Well, let me ask you: do you think like the BLM movement over the last year, with the giant enthusiasm from corporate America, was legit or commercial or just pandering? Or again, I'm always going to lean towards pandering here because
Could,
if they,
I mean, the answer is it can be all of those things because it's a huge
yeah,
movement,
but
right?
but only for a few. It can't be for all of them. It can't be for everybody because if they were if it was really a problem, they would have been standing against it before. Like for them, if it was really a problem for them, they would have been standing for this corporately before. So then there was this big social movement behind it, and they went, "Yeah, man, that's us too." The whole time we were there, but now that it's popular, we're putting black fist on everything, and we're saying Black
Yeah.
Lives Matter below like Nestle's iced tea drinks. It makes no sense. But
there was definitely a zeitgeist that, you could see who the leaders and followers were. You know, so yeah, on a corporate, I mean, it would, on a corporate level, it's very clear to see like, okay, is everybody doing this? We're all doing this. You know what I mean? And somebody rushes into a boardroom. It's like, Nike's like, Adidas just changed their profile picture. And he's like, Johnson, change our profile picture now. We got to get ahead of this. You know what I mean?
right.
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
right.
Right. I mean, and that's where I'm landing, man. Like, I don't care. I mean, I can care on any particular issue how you personally feel about it. And if you want to change your stuff and start promoting things on a whim, friggin' go for it.
And if I was an activist, I would be irritated.
I would think so.
Because, the pandering corporate aspect, setting aside whether, in a particular topic, whether we would agree or disagree with the bullet points of what they think, right?
Yeah, right.
If I was an activist for any given subject, it would annoy me if it kind of like, like when you like a band that's like underground and then they get famous and then all the annoying people at your high school start liking that band. It's kind of like that. You know what I mean? So, because then it gives people who would be opponents easy fodder for criticizing, right? So say what you want about the BLM movement, which we could say a lot about it, but like there are probably like, closet or uncloseted racists around the country who are given further fuel for their particular viewpoints by the commercialization of the BLM movement. And so in that sense, it's like, all right, well, now you're actually causing harm to what you would presumably try to be accomplishing. So
yeah, no, that is a fair point, and you're not incorrect with that at all. It's just, yeah.
I mean, just like it would be if you had like really annoying, like Ned Flanders characters, coming into your neighborhood, or maybe Ned Flanders isn't a good example because he was generally a pretty good dude, but like, really annoying Bible belters, like trying to like push stuff on you like they're in some sort of multi-level marketing group. And it's like they're doing it in such a clearly manipulative way that if they would just live their life, it would be a way better, demonstration of what they're trying to say. But because
right. Yeah, but no, like, it'd be like if there was this huge, second great awakening in the United States, and then like, where were we? Let me see here. Where were we with some of these companies? Like Cisco all of a sudden was just like putting a crown of thorns over their logo. He'd be like, okay, come on, man. Come on. You are so full of crap. Sorry. You can't just do that. You can't just grab onto something and say, yep, this is our corporate identity. Buy our stuff. You stupid Christian people. You stupid whoever.
Yeah. It was
kind
kind
of
of like
something that might get the channel shut down.
it was like kind of like when Chick-fil-A made the switch from playing like overtly Christian music to playing the instrumental versions of the same songs.
Ah,
I don't know if as a person who has been, well, before they shut them all down, like it was like a 2013 or 14 or so when I noticed that switch. It was kind of interesting.
that is funny. Yeah, I mean, like, well, Chick-fil-A is kind of an interesting, almost example of the other side. Although they didn't mean to be, they were just thrown into that. And then there was a hubbub about Chick-fil-A. Oh gosh, in correspondence with Pride stuff. So, just because their founder was donating to Christian causes or something like that, and then Chick-fil-A's the gay bashing chicken sandwich company, and they're like, we're just making sandwiches, man. We're not like they didn't.
Yeah,
they got thrown on the opposite side of that coin, but they weren't like proactively really working against. I mean, I understood they gave to charities and stuff as a company, but
Yeah,
I mean,
it gets-
but
it
every
gets-
company gives to charities. So
Yeah, it gets really murky, and I've got into all kinds of arguments about this, but it's like, you know, it's I don't know, it's sorry, like
That's
is money speech? You know what I mean? There's that old Supreme Court case where it's like, are corporations free to do what they want with their money, or are they not? Right. So, like, the head of Chick-fil-A, does he even represent the viewpoints of like all the millions of people who work for that company? You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah,
like,
right.
you try to have a conversation with somebody and you'd be like, well, I got to be honest. Not only is the food delicious, but that's a pretty low bar, because it's not that hard to make delicious food. But like, objectively, Chick-fil-A is the best run fast food place in the history of the world. I don't think that's
you
a
make that
terribly
argument. Yeah, it's pretty
that's
close.
That's not
Yeah.
very controversial. I mean, you look at like, I mean, because I take Avi to gymnastics and we go to Chick-fil-A afterwards, like every Tuesday, and they got the 3-lane drive-through. I mean, there's got to be 30 cars going through there in a 5-minute period. Nobody gets their
impressive.
order wrong. They got all these kids out there. They're all like 16 years old. They're all super polite, big smiles.
Yep.
And it's like, and they got like fans and they got the overhangs, and it's just like, they're more efficient than any government that's ever existed. I mean, I don't know what they're doing over there, but they're doing something right.
It is.
And
pretty
then
fantastic.
you say that, and they go, well, they're full of hate, and it's like, okay, that's a weird. And even the connection between them and is not the strongest connection.
Right.
Right, because if you're going to do that, you might as well just cancel like a lot of churches. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean that's a can of worms that maybe we don't want to get into, but
Right, but I mean, I guess if like I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like Chick-fil-A doesn't do it, but I mean, if they, I would still, even if it wasn't a cultural like big momentous thing, and they were trying to cash in on the founders' Christian roots and like,
but they're not. That's the thing.
I know, but if they were, you'd be like, I don't know, it's not really it's not your business. I mean, it is. I mean, you make chicken sandwiches, dude. Like that's what you do, and then you're trying to shoehorn in this thing just to make, especially like if you only did it in the South, which is where most of the Chick-fil-A's are anyway. But like where they want to expand, they're trying to get to Chicago. Then they drop like the Christianese stuff, and they don't have that, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It would used to be like, oh, you're obviously pandering, and you're changing, or you're.
But it's
using
not
this
even
down.
on the surface. Like like you
Oh,
walk into a
no.
Chick-fil-A. It's not like they have Bible verses on the wall.
Right, correct. Yeah, I was just saying if that were the example. We were
Oh,
trying to
yeah,
come up
yeah,
with
yeah,
one
yeah.
earlier, and we couldn't. Yeah, no, Chick-fil-A doesn't do that. That's what I think. It's actually harder to come up with on the right side of the aisle, a version of this. I think there's just so much more of it on the left, and that's why we both instinctively went, woke.
Maybe
stuff,
that's because if I was to take the devil's advocate on this, it's kind of like how when people criticize Black History Month and they're like, "Well, that's dumb. Would it be wrong to have a White History Month?" And the obvious reasonable answer is to say like, well, that's because Black history was largely ignored for so long that it's almost as if every other month is White History Month because that's the de facto norms.
Right.
So
More emphasis is important, or is legitimate in this instance.
Because history tends to be written by the people who are dominant in culture, which is why I was like, oh, well, yeah, I have no problem with Black History Month. It's a great thing because it highlights all these wonderful Americans. But at the same time, it's like, so maybe you could make the same point about that being like, there aren't really large scale corporate examples that at least that we can think of like right wing causes, because up until pretty recently, right wing causes were kind of the norm. They were like, they were the de facto American opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe,
yeah. But then again, though, like, sorry, even Black History Month, as noble as a pursuit that might be, like, sorry, like Nabisco, you make crackers. I don't care. I don't care what you think about Black History Month, and all you're doing, like, and you didn't care about it before Black History Month existed, and now you care about it. If they do, that's a bad example. I love Nabisco, no problem with that. Whoever makes Cheez-Its, you're my
Cheez-Its are
boy there. I don't know if that's Nabisco or not.
Well, I
But-
mean, well, you could also
But-
go
but-
with an easier example would be like actors. You know, like welcome
Yeah.
to the 83rd annual Golden Globes, and you got like Bradley Cooper up there being like, Donald Trump is the worst thing. It's like nobody cares. You know, like Bradley Cooper's a great actor, but like these people, like their whole job is to pretend to be other people, and you know, it's like no,
I care so little, I don't watch the Golden Globes.
I
So-
I haven't watched any of those in decades.
Yeah,
but-
no, yeah, I'm just kidding. Well, and it's so funny though. Like this isn't like an earth-shattering problem by any stretch of the imagination. It's just a mild annoyance in my psychotic brain, and I just
Yeah.
find it. I don't know. It's not disheartening. It's just it's silly. It's very silly, and it's a weird cultural moment we're in. It's almost though if you see like we're kind of. I feel like we're both tiptoeing around it a little bit, just so we don't sound like we're like part of the Westboro Baptist Church or something. It's just like so. That's not. Oh, damn it! If I had some time, I could have made some really good, stupid, bad photoshops.
Oh, that'd be a good way to get canceled.
No, they would have been tasteful. They would have been tasteful. I don't know. You know what I mean, though? Like, so it's just funny. Like, that's like obviously the insane opposite version of that, which they didn't have a cultural moment behind them. Minus all the news corporations that want to cover them and make money off of it, which is
Yeah.
also funny.
Yeah,
Good advertising
that'd be a good segue. Talk about the faux moralization of the news media, talking about how horrible things are while simultaneously giving them free press. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, look at these horrible people, Tom, that we found in rural Idaho, and they have the worst message in the world. So what we're going to do is we're going to help them get their message to millions of people around the country. And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you
for
you know what I mean?
months on end. Yep. Yeah.
Donald Trump is the worst American ever. Therefore, we're going to do nothing but talk about him for 7 years.
Yeah. He's such a threat that we have to put him in everybody's face.
Even after he's gone, we still talk about him. Yeah.
Yeah, like his ideas are so bad that we will share his ideas every 7 minutes on the 7 minutes in between weather and commercials for Viagra and Cialis and Boeing. Yep, that's a good point. But it's again, it's the corporate, it's the making money off its side. That's just
So
gross.
does this whole diatribe from you and me sound hypocritical given our previous comments about capitalism?
No, because you're free to try to make money, and I'm free to talk all the crap I want about you in the way you make your money. You can make money.
Okay. So this is
You
the,
can make money in bad
intersection of capitalism and free speech. It's two games, and they're both brutal games, and sometimes they interact, and may the best man win, right? So it's like, if you want to run your business and participate in the economic game, you're free to do so. Now, if you want to incorporate speech into that and viewpoints, you're free to do so, but also understand that as you put yourself out there, just like a product, you have to understand that you're at the whims of the market. And, if you put out a crappy product, somebody's going to write a bad Yelp review or Amazon review about you.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, look, man. Somebody made money off selling a pet rock. Like that's not a particularly moral or immoral way to make money. Maybe it's just amoral, but it's stupid and it's retarded. And if you bought a pet rock because you valued that dumb little rock in a package more than the $20 it cost you, good for you. But I would say that's the dumbest thing I would ever hear or whatever sell or try to market. But the thing with capitalism is you're free to make money. You're free to do it however you want to. If you defraud somebody or you don't say what you're going to do and you cheat and you harm somebody in the process, that's where the line's drawn. And there's no harm here. Like there's zero harm. Like there's no. I would never say there's no reason you could legally do this kind of stuff. It's like back to it. It's just super shallow and it's super pandery, and it's the negative aspects of capitalism, I guess, where you're not even selling what you sell. You're just selling an idea to help you sell something. I don't know, man. I don't like it. So I just don't like it, and I really don't. And I don't have maybe a super solid reason to change someone's mind over that, but it seems just gross. just to use that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And especially if people were actually hurt like a long time ago, like back to Ben's comments. So like there's part of the community that feel really like they've been like it's just it for those people that where Pride Month was a big deal over the last 20 years. Before that, now just to see people just cheapening it to a disgusting degree and making a buck off it, that seems it's gross. It's gross.
Yeah.
Now you can do it,
especially when you consider that were these companies, like say the ones you mentioned earlier, were they to really care, they would do something really ballsy and they would do the pride flag in the Middle East where they're throwing gay people off of roofs. You know what I mean? But so it's like, oh, well, they don't care enough about that principle to ruffle some feathers in a market.
Yeah. Or
You know
if
what I mean?
or if the owners of NBA teams or if actors or if anyone that does any business in China wants to complain about Donald Trump being a fascist dictator, they would cut all their ties with China because they're literally a murderous freaking regime that brutalizes people, puts them in trains and ships them off to concentration camps. But no, China's a huge ass market. You can't do that.
Did you hear about when they made the remake of Red Dawn?
Yes. I think with like Tom Cruise's patches, or not Tom Cruise, sorry, that was in the Top Gun remake. But they changed it from China to
North Korea.
North Korea.
Yeah, they filmed it and it sat on the shelf for like 3 years. And in the meantime, Chris Hemsworth became a star and they're like, oh, we got to release this movie. And the studio was like, I can't release it because China's a big deal. So but it becomes completely preposterous because North Korea has no other resources to take over
they can't.
world.
Yeah, North Korea cannot take over South Korea, let alone the United States or the rest
Honestly,
of the planet.
they can barely run North Korea as it is. So,
yes. Yeah, or like it was the newer Top Gun. They had to like edit out there's some like Hong Kong patches or something like that on there. There was something with Hong Kong and Tom Cruise that they had to take out.
Did the new Top Gun come out?
Or I don't know, maybe, or it's coming out, or maybe it's not because China wouldn't let it go out. Either way, there's something with Top Gun. That's it. I've read that. There's a lot of that though. There's a lot of.
I read part of a sentence on the internet, so.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's all false. Maybe it's true. Maybe I just made that whole thing up. But again, it's now on the internet, so therefore it's true.
Yeah, people will cite this as a source.
Right. Well, for sure though, like the NBA, there were some players that wanted to protest and put like they were doing like Black Lives Matter stuff.
I did hear about that. That's right.
And they wanted to put like free Hong Kong on their jerseys. They're like, no.
Same thing with John Cena, I think.
The John Cena thing is. We didn't talk about the John Cena thing?
It sounds like you know more about it than I do because I only know a little bit of it tangentially. But like basically, he had to do like an apology because he accidentally said the phrase Taiwan or something.
Yeah, he said something about Taiwan.
He said the word Taiwan, and he didn't say it as like being a Chinese property. And then the Chinese were like, "No, you got to do this."
Right. He didn't even say anything in like a politically adversarial way. He just mentioned it in an interview because he was doing 1 million interviews for Fast and the Furious or whatever. And then he had that whole struggle session apology thing. It was like it was like one of those terrorist videos where like you're holding a newspaper and you have to like read. Yeah,
you gotta
exactly.
blink.
You gotta blink twice. Yeah, it was so bad, and he did it all in Mandarin because he's learning Mandarin so he can like cash in on the Chinese people's oppression, and he's doing good. He's doing real good. So yeah, it was pretty disturbing. Like it was creepy to watch. But yeah, so that's the same. Well, it's not the same thing, but it is the same thing. Like if you had real balls, you would stand up for that as a business person.
Yeah.
Also, then again, like my business, I have no business dealings in China, so it doesn't hurt me to say this crap. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
Or I could stop buying stuff that comes from China, but that's a pretty hard thing to negotiate.
That'd be virtually impossible.
It would be. Yeah. It's crazy.
But you'd have to pay like $3,000 for a smartphone.
Well, not even right. Like the stuff that you need, it'd be hard to find. But like even just parsing through things that you don't need, but like, where's this T-shirt made? How am I gonna even? I gotta find out where this T-shirt was made before I buy it. Like, hopefully it's Indonesia. That's like the best I can do, which is really not much better. So
yeah.
Wow, man, we just did 45 minutes on that. I didn't think we were gonna do 45 minutes on that.
I'm sure we left off a lot of very important points.
Nah, I'm sure we did. But but just all in all, it's just so stupid to me. and it's strikes me as just so shallow. And
Well, because
maybe
you're a
it's-
person,
maybe
who likes to
it's not
put
a
it
big
all
deal, though.
out there.
I mean, I do, but and maybe it's really not a big deal. Maybe it's not. Maybe most people don't care, and that's why they get. Actually, most people don't care. That's why they can do it. Like they certainly can. That's certainly why they can do it.
Right. I think it would be interesting to like psychoanalyze the reasons why it bothers you. And that, for one, it could be like, one, you've never been a person who's particularly interested in following crowds. Two, you're not a person who needs other people to like see things the way you do. You're kind of like, all right, well, I'm
Correct.
doing my thing. Like I don't really care what you're doing. And so, but not everybody's like that. A lot of people are very much into the idea of like, well, I kind of need to feel like part of a community and part of a group, right? So they find people and they kind of go along with the zeitgeist or whatever. And two, there are people who are like very interested and they're heavily vested in the idea of convincing other people to their viewpoints, or they're even say, or in the case of like marketing, they're like, that's literally your job, is so you're trying to convince people to buy a product. So whatever angle you can use to do so, you do it. So it's like, you know.
That's funny. That's a good thought, though. It's interesting because you're right. All those characterizations of me are generally true. Now, I want to be part of several communities, and those are the communities that I value, and I am part of them.
But
and those people's opinion.
Integral to your personality is you like to feel like an individual within the community, right? Like I say that because I feel like I'm the same way. Like I like being part of groups, right? But I enjoy it when I'm like, you know, people will go like, yeah, well, there's only one Dan in this group. You know what I mean? Like for better or worse. And I think I like that. Like I like being like the person who like that people know is like, well, there's only one of that guy. And I feel like, you know, we take a little pride in our individuality, even while we exist in groups.
Sure. Maybe I do that unconsciously. I'm sure I do that to some degree unconsciously. And I'm sure there's a million people, and by a million, the 3 people who are listening to this going, of course you do, you self-aggrandizing jerk face. But no, that's good, I guess. But
being contrarian is the new trend.
I know, and honestly, I don't want to be that. Like someone said something, they're like, "Look at you stirring the pot." I was like, I wasn't trying to stir the pot. I really wasn't. I was just trying to. I get that a lot though, but maybe that just comes with the territory.
It's hard to resist.
Well, it's not even that. It's just like if I say, then if you have that reputation, anything you say is stirring the pot, contrarian, real individual.
Well, I
look at me.
that a lot.
Yeah.
Because I'm the type of person that like, we've talked about this before, but like, I like talking about things. And,
yeah, me too.
You know, like the type of thing that I'm likely to like post something about on Facebook or whatever publicly, it's going to be something that probably has a non-woke or non-left wing or non-approved narrative kind of bent to it. And people say that's like, well, you know, aren't you irritated about these things that, you know, these far right people do? I'm like, well, of course I am. They're like, well, why don't you talk about them? I'm like, well, that's a good question. So I had to do some soul searching about that because I'm like, you know, I'm probably. So a lot of it, and if I had to come up with an answer, it would be because, well, there's already an entire narrative main news industrial complex built around saying these things, criticizing anything that's remotely non-progressive. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, does the world need another person criticizing the Trump administration? It's like there's already millions of people doing that, for better or worse. Some of them doing it well, some of them doing it stupidly. But it's like it's hard to find an articulate source, especially amongst like, you know, millennials kind of our generation, somebody who can articulate. It's like, well, you know, this Bernie Sanders idea of there's actually some pretty large chinks in that armor. Why don't we talk about that? Like, you know, do we all understand what inflation is and how that could hurt us? Because that's something that's worth talking about, right? And it's like, it's these things that don't get talked about, and that's kind of what maybe like subconsciously, that's why I think, well, I need to say this because this is not being said, while simultaneously feeding my ego for sounding like the one person, you know. What's that photo of like, I don't know, there's a photo of like this Nazi rally from like 1938 or whatever, and there's all these people with the swastikas, there's the one guy who's like that,
Everyone's like, I would be that guy.
Like, no, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, you're full of crap.
99.9% of us would all be
both their hands up.
all be doing that. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I feel like I've done a decent amount of self-reflection in that area, and I'm sure I fall prey to some of that. But like, I don't know. I like to discuss stuff, and it aggravates me with things that are untrue or said.
Yeah.
But like not that I'm the arbiter of truth, but like there are things that I would say I think pretty sure that's untrue, and I think you should say. And it's just so funny because like every discussion you get into, especially of a political issue, it just drives into that wedge, and they're like, well, so here's why it's so divisive with people because they see you as either right or left. No one ever sees you as a libertarian, anarchist, whatever you want to be. But like it's either you take the side and then they see you as the whole other side and you go, you're trying to use political power to advance your thoughts on me and like your way of life on me. So what I tell people, and I sincerely believe this, I'm like, I'm literally not doing that. I'm trying to get you to change your thoughts, your ideas. Like your ideas are what matter. Like how you feel about something is what I'm trying to get you to change. Like, and because typically if I'm really passionate about it and there's something important enough to talk about, it's important for you as a human being to be right about. And I try to save important arguments up for stuff like that. Like this one, it's kind of important, but it's fun. But we're just talking. We're not getting into a screaming match here, and I wouldn't get into a screaming match with anybody about this kind of stuff. But like there are issues that I would strongly push back on people about and use very strong language because if you're wrong about this, it kind of threatens your humanity a little bit. And there's a lot of that, and it's on both sides. And I'm sure there are things that I have wrong that I would like that kind of pushback from people, not on a political level, but on a personal level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, that makes total sense because I learned this like speaking to a therapist I used to go to a few years ago.
Where the self-reflection. See, I've not had to.
Well, it
not
was
had to do that yet.
I lucked out because a lot of people, you know, they start talking to a licensed person, and it's really hard to find somebody who's good at it. I got very lucky that I just happened to come across a person who could jive with my level of just random monologuing. Cool. And this person was really cool because she would say, well, what do you think about that? And I would go, well, and then insert like, 4 or 5 paragraphs of Dan rambling. And she'd go, well, don't you think that maybe comes from the fact that like, you have a personality need to kind of feel like you're cool? And I go, oh, shit, she's right. You know what I mean? And I was like, but afterwards, after I got over the sting of being told, I was like, oh, that's a good point. And then that armed me with the ability to be like, okay, well now I can think about this stuff on my own and hopefully try to come up with like reasonably smart opinions. But
right. And it's okay to, I mean, everybody has that though. Everybody wants to be liked, felt important. And if you think your ideas are something of value to share, that's part of that identity as well. I mean, some people have it for a million other aspects of human interaction. It doesn't have to be sharing ideas. It can be, friendship, compassion, listening, serving, all those love language things. Like those are all very valuable things, and you can do them for selfish reasons. And you can also do them for, good reasons, which is harder when. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I like to think that one of the things that annoys me about a lot of people, and part of like certain pet issues bother me, is because it becomes very clear that certain people in groups, it's like if they really need to have a villain in whatever story they are, right? And so they might take a legitimate concept and they exaggerate it to the nth degree to like almost mythological proportions because it makes them feel more dramatic and it gives them more purpose to have a villain of the story. And so, look, there are real villains in the world, but not every story has a villain. And so that psychological need, like once you know to look for it, you just see it everywhere and you're like, oh, okay, well, that person's just trying, you know what I mean? Like somebody who has like an ex that they just like everything that's wrong with their life is because of that person, or whether it's like a corporation or a political party or a religious group or it's something else. Like people like villains. Villains give people a sort of a barometer of where they stand.
It's a thread through a story that they can weave.
And so that's a particular beef for me because like it almost delegitimizes a lot of what a person might say when it becomes clear that they have a psychological need for somebody to be the bad guy. But
interesting. I can see that.
Yeah. Or like
we got another comment.
These days, it is not hard to stir the pot.
Thanks, Andrew. You slimy, disgusting. pony faced dog soldier, whatever Joe Biden's insults are. Just kidding, Andrew. You see, you're a nice guy.
I haven't talked to him in 20 years. It
I
reminds
only
me
have
of-
on Facebook here.
Did we talk about this last time with the one Simpsons where the professor gets up and there's like a science conference and he's trying to talk and all the people are like chit chatting in the room and he's like, excuse me, everybody. And everybody keeps talking. He goes to the mic, he goes, pi is exactly 3. And everybody like stops and like turns and looks at him. He's like, now that I have your attention, wave it, whatever.
Wave it, boo.
Anyway.
Let me share something stupid with you, Dan.
All right.
Before we go, was down in Florida, and I've already alluded to my 5K challenge, and I came across this sign while running downtown Orlando. Just look at that picture. Like I was there were like 3 or 4 of these. I was like, what am I supposed to do if this hawk comes down on me? Proceed with care. That's all I could do. But look at the picture, man. That hawk is coming at that guy.
I love how it says care and not caution. You think that's because they ran out of space?
Well, yeah, probably. It's supposed to
Like care,
proceed.
like what? Like take care, like make sure that you're nice to the hawk. Like,
Yeah.
you'd think it would be like beware of hawk.
Arm yourself accordingly. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just thought that was
You have,
hilarious.
Like an instructional sign. It's like this will work, and they have like 12 gauge shotgun, like some sort of giant blunderbuss, like hunting rifle. And then it's like does not work, and then like rocks, like a 22. Like
Yeah. There was a couple other signs that I didn't stop and take a picture of, which is like around like ponds and like waiting areas and like, like decorative, like ponds and like big parking lots for like convention centers are like beware of alligators and snakes. And it had like a snake like eating a little dog. I was like, that's awesome. you walk your dog. I'm sorry for anyone in Florida who's had their dog eaten by an alligator.
or like a picture of like a small child with like a giant snake. Like
It's brutal, man. Apparently, Florida's a tough place to live, man. Florida makes hard
you know
men.
what? I get a dual narrative about Florida because some of the people that you talk to are like Florida, it's like, all the like jokes about like Florida man or whatever. And then there's other people that you talk to like, dude, Florida is the best place to go. So
Yeah.
it's a big.
Hey, look, it's unfair. I have unfair thoughts about it because I only go down for recreational or work reasons, and I like it when I go down there. It's hot and gross, but it's a beautiful place. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
It really is.
whatever. There's a lot of beautiful places. What are you gonna do? Okay. Wow.
All
Again, we did that whole show on that one topic, and we didn't even really mean to. That's good.
Yeah,
A lot of
we
pent up.
ramble with the best of them.
I guess so. We'll see how that goes. Anything else you want to add, man?
No, I'll probably think about something about 3 hours from now, but that's tomorrow's problem.
We'll do that in episode 17 when no one remembers this episode. So
Right.
that'll work.
Okay.
All right. Well, have a good night.
All right. Later.
That was the wrong button.